Hello, I'm Joe Tucker, President of the International Academy of Trial Lawyers, and welcome to the Academy's official podcast, The Rule of Law, The Academy Speaks. Today, I have my good friend Michael X. Coard on here talking, and we're going to expand it all. Mike and I go back years with each other, and we're going to talk about a bunch of things. But first, Mike, and all of you all who are listening, you got to look at YouTube. I'm rocking my Howard University t-shirt and chain today because we actually made it to the NCAAs this year because we won the MEAC championship. What you say about that, Mike?
I'm thoroughly impressed, and I generally mean that. I know the different HBCUs, yours, Howard, mine, Cheney, we kind of go back and forth, but it's all love. And when I see HBCUs doing the right thing, I'm right there. If it wasn't for the fact that I was diehard Cheney, I'd have on that t-shirt today, Joe.
All right. This is the first time I've worn a t-shirt on the podcast, but I knew if no one would appreciate it, you would appreciate it.
Yes, sir. And let me say this very quickly because I called you Joe because that's what I call friends by their first name. But Joe, you're the first African-American president of the International Academy of Trial Lawyers. I feel like I should call you the Honorable Joe Tucker. And I really mean that, Joe, because you and I, you know where you came from. I know where I came from. And to have me here in my role, and I had some success, you in your role, mega success, all about HBCUs, Howard and Cheney.
Mike, you know you and I are part of the Mutual Admiration Society, but some of our listeners don't know about you. And I want to tell them a little bit about you. You live what I say, two lives, but both of them are consistent with the rule of law. You are one of the most successful criminal defense lawyers this city has ever seen, representing some people who I'm going to talk to you about. You also lead Avenging the Ancestors Coalition, which is also consistent with the rule of law and with American history. Let me begin with your criminal defense practice. The Academy came out, we were one of the very first organizations, and I'm proud to say I helped lead us with this, with a position statement that you can find on our website asking for the complete abolition of the death penalty in the United States, which I know you can appreciate as a criminal defense lawyer.
Joe, when I saw that statement issued by the International Academy of Trial Lawyers, I thought you all plagiarized my 2021 article in the Philadelphia Tribune because it was right there. And I was so impressed because of what the International Academy of Trial Lawyers means, not just nationwide, but literally internationally. And for folks on your level to conclude the very same thing that Michael Coard, aka Michael X, aka the angriest black man in America, is saying, that really shows me that the legal profession is on the right track. I always say that people are smart if they agree with me. And you, Joe, and the Academy agree with me. And very quickly, Joe, before I hear your follow-up, I hope folks understand what I meant when I said, AKA the angriest black man in America.
For people who don't know you, why don't you give us a little bit on that, Mike?
Thank you, Joe. One of the greatest philosophers, thinkers, academics in American history, the great James Baldwin said, and I'm paraphrasing, to be black and conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage. So he's saying, and I agree, if you're black and know about slavery, you got to be enraged. If you're black and know about sharecropping and convict leasing and Jim Crow and mass incarceration and the death penalty, police brutality, you have to be enraged. You have to be angry. But you and I know, Joe, that anger has to be constructive. It has to be productive. And education is the key for black folks to make sure their story is told.
Well, Mike, let's talk a little bit about your criminal defense practice. And one of the times that you truly stood in the gap in the rule of law, there was a tragic, a horrific police killing of Officer Cassidy, who was going into his Dunkin' Donuts like he did every day. And this fool killed Officer Cassidy. Then this fool had a fool for a lawyer, and he was you.
I love it. I love it.
I was like, I almost said, this guy needs to be taken, he needs the death penalty. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that representation, how you stood there for the rule of law on a guy who killed, I mean, this was one of the worst killings I'd seen in Philadelphia.
Joe, I love how you framed that question. I love how you set it up. Let me start by saying that I'm not the type of lawyer who because I concede, I represent some bad guys who do some bad things. Having said that, I don't go to court with the ultimate goal of quote unquote beating the case. I go to court to guarantee them a fair trial, whether it's a poor, young black guy from the hood or an older, wealthier white guy from the suburbs. The rule applies to both of them. I'm almost like a traffic cop in my role as a criminal defense attorney, because my role is just to make sure if traffic is supposed to go south, go south. If it's supposed to be 40 miles an hour, it goes 40 miles an hour. Just because I call out the police for traveling north on a southbound road or going 60 miles on a 40 mile per hour, I'm not attacking cops. I'm not promoting the death of cops. I'm simply making sure that the law applies. And Joe, I'm so glad you talked about the rule of law, because again, I don't go to court to get my clients off. I go there to guarantee them a fair trial. My client could be my grandmother or it could be Charles Manson. But the rule of law applies to both of them. And you talked about the heroic cop, Chuck Cassidy, who was murdered by my client. Based on the evidence, based on the video, based on the trial, it's clear. But here's the thing, Joe. That's why I said I love the way you framed it, because there was a reporter for a local news outlet who wasn't as bright as you. So as I'm walking to the courthouse, he sticks a camera and microphone in my face and said, "Mr. Coard, what are you doing? Your guy's on videotape killing a cop." And I turned around and said to the reporter, "Okay, the evidence seems to show that. Based on that, sir, we have two options. One, we can take my client out back for a lynching, or we can take him upstairs for a trial. Your choice." And the reporter realized how stupid his comment was. It all comes down, Joe, to the rule of law. And add to that, Joe, racism and classism. Very quickly, when people accuse me of playing the race card, I concede that.
Which you're often accused of.
Almost always accused of. And I tell folks that they're surprised that I wear that on my sleeve, because America dealt from the race deck in 1619 when it been to enslave my ancestors. But even more, I think more relevant to today, here's the question I ask them, Joe, and it's a rhetorical question that makes them think. I say, if you think I play the race card too much, answer me this. Let's say tomorrow you had to be a defendant in a criminal case. All things being equal, same job, same income, same religion, same clothing, same car, same neighborhood. But you have the choice to go to trial as a black defendant or a white defendant. Which would you select? If it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you're driving up Broad Street near Temple University, and as you're driving, lights and sirens from a police vehicle come behind you. As that cop approaches you, again, all things being equal, you could be a black driver or a white driver. Which would you select? The answer explains why I do what I do.
I understand. Now, you're not waiting for me to disagree with you, are you?
I'm not sure, Joe. I'm not sure.
You're not waiting? Because one of the things, you and I are members of the Mutual Admiration Society. I was going to grow my hair out to look like you for the podcast today, but I just couldn't seem to get there with the hair today.
I love it.
Mike, how do you do this day in and day out, defending the worst of the worst? Because there was one case, it was a video store killing up at 22nd and Lehigh.
22nd and Lehigh, yes.
How did you remind me of that case? Because that case outraged me also. Another time, I quietly got mad at you going like, Mike, how can you defend these guys?
Joe, you have a great memory. You remember the case involving Dunkin' Donuts, and you remember the case at 22nd and Lehigh regarding the video shot. Tragic case, all these cop cases. In fact, I don't know if this makes things better or worse, Joe, but every cop killing in Pennsylvania over the last 12 to 15 years, every cop killing in Philadelphia over the last 12 to 15 years, who was the attorney for the defendant? Yours truly, attorney Michael Coard. And I need to correct myself, Joe, because I said, who was the attorney for these defendants? Joe, I don't represent my clients. I represent the Constitution. And people need to understand that. So whatever the law says, that law applies to people who did it and people who didn't do it. And speaking of that, and Joe, eventually I'll get to answering the question you posed, but let me just say this very quickly. I try to explain to people, why do you think it is that when a jury is about to deliberate, the judge gives the jurors a jury instruction, jury charges, and the judge tells them that based on all that, you ladies and gentlemen of the jury have to decide guilty or not guilty? I remind people, the judge doesn't say guilty or innocent. The judge says guilty or not guilty. Why? Because innocent means the guy didn't do it. Not guilty means the Commonwealth didn't prove it. The Commonwealth must be required to prove cases beyond a reasonable doubt because, Joe, they have four awesome powers. The Commonwealth, the government, the prosecution can do four things that the mayor can't do, the governor can't do, the president can't do. They can take away your property by imposing a fine. They can take away your liberty by throwing you in jail. They can take away your children through a custody order, and they can take away your life through the death penalty. Shouldn't somebody be standing in the breach to make sure that everybody on the government sides with such awesome power is checked? That's me. I'm that guy. So I want the most quote unquote egregious case because that's the test for the law. The law is easy in a shoplifting case, but is the law fair in a cop killing death penalty case? It should be in both. And that's where I come in. And Joe, I apologize.
Made a reason that I love you because a lot of us talk, and I do civil litigation, theoretically about the rule of law.
Yes.
You're living it and breathing it every day. And again, as you often know, I go like, Mike, you're a better man than me to represent these individuals.
And you know, because you've said this to me before and we just talked about it, I make it clear to people, and I hope I don't get myself in trouble. I won't because these cases are over. Not only do I not represent these people, many of them I don't even like, but it's all about the rule of law. It's all about making sure that their rights are guaranteed, especially when you're talking about a system that's both racist and classist. I would argue that the death penalty is inhumane and a crime against humanity, even if there were no racism, even if there were no classism. Just the idea of a governmental entity having the right to take away somebody's life is a horrible, horrible thing. But getting back to the key point, Joe, it's not about getting my clients off. It's only about guaranteeing them a fair trial under the rule of law. Because as I said, it's easy to be a zealous advocate in a shoplifting case. Can you be a zealous advocate when somebody kills children or cops or fire persons or the elderly? That's the test.
Do you sometimes in your quiet moments say, I can't do this. I can't defend. And I have another question behind that, but you sometimes say, this guy's on video. This police officer is coming in to GameStop to return a video for his son.
Around the Christmas holiday, no less.
Yeah, yes. Do you, and that's my neighborhood where I grew up.
Yes.
Where that happened. And I just shook my head because he left his children. And I said, and I was already cursing you because I knew that you would ultimately represent these punks.
And I can't dispute anything you said, but Joe, you talk about you cursed me. Joe, you should have seen After I was able to get the death penalty dismissed, but the guy still faced life, at the sentencing for life, the cop's mother cursed me out in court as if I was the shooter. Didn't say anything to my client, but was yelling and screaming at me. But Joe, here's the thing. I took it because I understood it. If I was that cop's father, the court officers would have had to restrain me from jumping over the table to attack the shooter. So I get it. But again, we have to ask ourselves, is this society of law or society of vigilantes? Should family members, should loved ones be able to take the law into their own hands? And in a civilized society, the answer is no. But everybody agrees with what I said in an academic kind of way, in a theoretical kind of way. But when it's real and you see the video, and it's really funny, Joe, because with technology, the killing of the officer at the GameStop on video, the killing of Officer Chuck Cassidy in Dunkin' Donuts on video. So it's not a question of whether the client did it. Another thing, and we can dig into this now or later, usually people who commit those kind of crimes, is something wrong with them. So if there's something, if you're physically disabled, society has certain guardrails to protect you, but not so much when you have a mental disability. And when you talk about people who commit the most egregious murders, it's got to be something wrong with them. Very quickly, I had a case where a guy, Joe, horrible life. And I'm not going to say jaded, but I've been doing this so long, capital murder cases, that when things happen in court, it doesn't affect me. Let me give you a 30-second version of a 3-hour story. My client was charged with 3 separate murders. Joe, I believe he committed at least 7 or 8. Here's his life, though, Joe. He was born in the projects to a drug-addicted mother with venereal disease who was still an active prostitute. He's inside her stomach. This is all going. Joe, when he's able to crawl, he's not chasing balls and participating in games like you and I did. Joe, he's in the project on his hands and knees chasing rats through holes in the projects. Joe, you and I leave the family household age 17, 18, 19 to do our thing. Joe, he leaves at age 7 and begins to steal cars and be lookouts for drug dealers and finally graduated. You talk about a life starting with hell. His mom gets on the witness stand because, Joe, we couldn't find one person as a mitigation witness. No baseball coach, no Boy Scout leader, nobody say anything good about this guy. His mom gets on the stand and I got so choked up. She said, "Ladies and gentlemen, jury, please don't kill my son. He didn't ask to come here." So I ask anybody who thinks that, okay, this guy charged with 3 separate murders, probably got 6 or 7 more. What do we do with him? If any of us had that lifestyle, can you imagine the fetus, you're inside your mother and she's a crack addict, she's a prostitute, she got venereal disease, and then it's downhill from there. So my point, Joe, is that we have to look at the type of people we talk about executing, because sometimes by the very act they commit, it's something wrong with them.
That's a wonderful way to put it. And when you put it like that, you begin to understand, and why I go around with my Mike Coard flag, waving it all the time. And, because you're fighting the fight, like I said, that many of us talk about. You're representing those people who many of us look down upon and say that need the death penalty. Now, growing up where you grew up, how did you end up being where you are?
Joe, the answer is pretty much your story. I mean, we grew up in North Philly, in the hood. There's so many negative things around us, but for whatever reason, we value education. I was a kid at an under-resourced North Philly school, 22nd Susquehanna, Pratt Arnold. Somehow in the 3rd grade, I don't know what happens, I do well in a citywide test. What does the system do, Joe? They take little Michael Coard out of Pratt Arnold, 3rd grade, and they put me in Masterman. And now that I'm at Masterman, I'm on my way to college and law school and success. But here's the thing, Joe, I don't celebrate the system plucking me out of that under-resourced North Philly school and putting me in Masterman. Why? Because they left Shaquita, who sat next to me in Pratt Arnold. They left Raheem, who sat in front of me in Pratt Arnold. I was no smarter than them. I just did well on some test on that day. So for me,
They plucked me out from Pierce at 23rd and Cambria,
yep.
sent me to Masterman.
Same story, Joe. So we realize the value of education, but we're still living in the neighborhood where there are temptations. Very quickly, Joe, I told a judge 3 days ago about this because my client had a similar situation. My client was accused of stabbing somebody, but I told the judge during the sentencing, I said, Judge, my client right here, there before the grace of God go I. He, born and raised in North Philly. I, born and raised in North Philly. Some guys attacked his friend. He had to retaliate, and he did what he did. I said, Your Honor, I left Masterman one day. I'm at home. My friends all go to Franklin. One of my friends get off the subway at Broad and Lehigh, walking down Lehigh to where we live. Some guys from 16th Street jump him. He comes back to the neighborhood, busted lip, bloody nose, black eye, and now he wants to retaliate. That's my homie. We play baseball together. We all arm together. Joe, I went to my grandmother's kitchen, got a knife, put it in my shirt pocket. I had a red shirt on, put the knife in my shirt pocket, not to stab the other guys, but to go back. And if I got caught by them, I could defend myself. My point is, Joe, you probably have stories similar. So when I see a kid charged with a crime, I want to know the backstory. If Michael Coard had been attacked by these guys and began to slash with a knife, I could have killed somebody. I'd be doing life right now, and people be like, that Mike Coard is a monster, but they don't know my story.
Well, the first time I got stabbed, it was up at 22nd and Lehigh, Connie Mack Stadium. We were swimming. I'll make my long story short. But I joke with people, the reason why I never learned how to swim was because when I went swimming, I got stabbed and it was in the wrong neighborhood. So I never went back swimming.
And Joe, I'm so glad you bringing that up because you have that story. I have that story. And so many African-American attorneys like you and me have that story. Fortunately, you didn't run home and get a knife and go back and stab and kill the guy who stabbed you. Fortunately, the guys I was looking for, I didn't encounter. So we always have to ask the backstory. Either, and when it comes to my clients, 99.9% of my clients are young black men between the ages of 17 and 25. So when you see them commit these egregious acts, Joe, there's one of two reasons for it. One, young black men are genetically predisposed to violence.
You stole my story. You stole that. Go ahead, Mike. You and I think so much alike, but go ahead. I'm gonna let you own this one. You go ahead.
Joe, I appreciate that. And the next segment, I'll toss it to you and you'll run with it. But my clients, Joe, are either genetically predisposed to violence or there are societal reasons for what they do. People who see my clients call them thugs and monsters, almost like Frankenstein. But here's the thing, Joe, when it comes to Frankenstein. People who've read the book and seen the movie, they still don't get it, Joe. The monster was not named Frankenstein. The monster had no name. Well, who the hell is Frankenstein? Dr. Victor Frankenstein that created the monster. So the American educational system creates most of my clients because if they had not just taken them out of those North Philly schools and put them in Masterman, but give the same damn resources to North Philly school that you give Masterman.
I always talk about that Native Son and Bigger Thomas, where I say, do not get upset when you have set me up to be who I am, that I end up being that person.